Tonight, we are going to descend into a world so small that the human mind was never built to truly imagine it. A realm beneath dust, beneath cells, beneath molecules, a hidden architecture beneath everything you have ever touched, breathed, or loved. We are going to explore the true scale of a single atom. And before this night is over, you may begin to see reality differently forever. Because the world around you only appears solid. Your body only appears full. The chair beneath you only appears continuous and real. In truth, everything around you is built from structures that are almost entirely empty space. Vast, invisible emptiness held together by forces stranger than fiction. And if tonight's journey awakens your curiosity about the hidden architecture of the universe, you may someday enjoy our exploration of what happens inside a neutron star, where matter becomes so dense that a single spoonful could outweigh mountains. But tonight, our path moves in the opposite direction. Tonight, we shrink downward instead of upward. Welcome to Velarin's Sleepy Space Mysteries. If these slow cosmic journeys help you relax, drift, or wonder about the universe a little differently, remember to subscribe, leave a like, turn on notifications, and perhaps join the channel membership to support future explorations. And before we continue, tell me quietly in the comments where you are watching from tonight. Somewhere beneath city lights, somewhere beside an ocean, somewhere in the silence of the countryside, somewhere awake while the rest of the world sleeps. Now settle in. Let your breathing slow. Imagine holding out your hand in front of you. A hand you have seen every day of your life. Familiar, ordinary, solid. You can see the lines across your skin, the curve of your knuckles, the faint shadows between your fingers. If you press your hand against a wall, the wall resists you immediately. Everything about the experience feels certain and physical. Yet hidden inside that hand are trillions upon trillions of atoms. Structures so small that your eyes will never directly see a single one. Not because your vision is weak. Not because technology is imperfect, but because atoms exist beyond the scale that visible light itself can properly reveal. And what is most unsettling is not merely how small atoms are. It is how empty they are. If every atom inside your body lost its empty space completely, all the matter that makes you exist would shrink smaller than a grain of dust. Your bones, your blood, your memories, your thoughts, compressed into something almost invisible. This is not science fiction. This is the actual structure of matter itself. The universe built everything you know from emptiness arranged with extraordinary precision. Tonight, we begin a slow descent toward that invisible world. We will move smaller than grains of sand, smaller than bacteria, smaller than viruses. We will enter the strange territory where ordinary language begins to fail, a place where particles behave like waves, where matter becomes probability, where solidity itself is revealed as an illusion created by invisible forces. And somewhere deep within that descent lies one of the strangest truths humanity has ever discovered. The closer we look at reality, the less solid it becomes. To understand the true scale of an atom, we cannot begin with atoms themselves. They are simply too small for the mind to grasp immediately. The numbers become meaningless unless we descend gradually, step by step, from the familiar world into the invisible one beneath it. So tonight, imagine yourself shrinking slowly through layers of reality. The room around you fades larger and larger. The walls drift outward like distant cliffs. The fabric of your clothes becomes a woven landscape. The tiny textures on your skin become ridges and valleys stretching across enormous terrain. Everything expands around you as you fall deeper towards scales human beings were never meant to witness directly. Let us begin with something simple. A grain of sand resting quietly on a beach beneath moonlight. Small enough to slip between your fingers. Small enough to disappear beneath your fingernail. Yet a single grain of sand is gigantic compared to an atom. A typical grain measures roughly 0.5 millimeter across. That may sound tiny in everyday life, but compared to atomic scales, it is colossal beyond imagination. If atoms were enlarged to the size of marbles, a grain of sand would become larger than a mountain. Now shrink smaller still. Far beneath the grain of sand lies the world of cells. Your body contains tens of trillions of them at this very moment. Silent microscopic chambers carrying oxygen, repairing tissue, transmitting signals through your nervous system while you sit here listening in the quiet darkness. A human red blood cell measures around 7 micrometers across. Already invisible to your naked eye. Already requiring magnification to observe. Yet even these cells are enormous compared to atoms. A single red blood cell contains hundreds of millions of atoms arranged in astonishing complexity. Continue shrinking. Smaller than cells are bacteria drifting invisibly through the air around you right now. Some rest on your skin. Others float silently through every room you enter. A typical bacterium is only a few micrometers long. Thousands could fit across the width of a pencil mark. Yet inside every bacterium exists a crowded universe of molecules, proteins, membranes, and genetic instructions, all constructed from atoms too small to imagine directly. Then we descend smaller still into the realm of viruses. The influenza virus measures roughly 100 nanometers across. Tiny beyond ordinary comprehension. Millions could rest on the surface of a fingertip unnoticed. And yet, even a virus is still immense compared to a single atom. At this depth of scale, human intuition begins to fail entirely. The distances become too small for ordinary language to carry comfortably. Numbers lose emotional meaning. The mind hears them, but cannot truly feel them. An atom measures roughly 1/10 of a nanometer across, about 1/10,000,000th of a meter. To understand how extreme this really is, imagine stretching a single meter into 10 billion equal pieces. One of those pieces would approximate the width of a single atom. 10 billion divisions hidden inside a length smaller than your arm span. It is a scale so remote from ordinary life that evolution never prepared human brains to visualize it properly. Another comparison helps reveal the enormity of this smallness. Across the width of a human hair, roughly 500,000 atoms could fit side by side. 500,000 invisible structures arranged across something you barely notice drifting across your shoulder. Even the thin edge of paper contains millions upon millions of atomic layers stacked together quietly in the darkness. And then comes perhaps the strangest realization of all. The world feels continuous because atoms are so unimaginably numerous. Every object around you contains numbers of atoms so large they resemble astronomical quantities more than ordinary counting. A single drop of water hanging from a faucet contains sextillions of atoms. More atoms than there are grains of sand across Earth's beaches. more microscopic structures in one tiny droplet than the human mind can genuinely conceptualize. Inside your own body exist roughly 7 octillion atoms. 7 followed by 27 zeros. Numbers so vast they stop feeling numerical at all and instead become abstract landscapes of quantity. Every breath rearranges atoms. Every heartbeat moves oceans of atoms through your veins. Every thought emerges from electrical patterns formed by atoms interacting inside the darkness of your brain. Yet, despite these unimaginable numbers, no one has ever directly seen an atom with ordinary sight. Human eyes will never witness one naturally, not because they are hidden, not because they are rare, but because atoms are smaller than the wavelengths of visible light itself. Light waves pass over atoms the way ocean waves pass over grains of dust beneath the sea. The scale mismatch is too extreme. The universe itself prevents ordinary vision from entering this hidden domain. And so for most of human history, atoms existed only as speculation. Ancient philosophers imagined tiny, indivisible particles hidden beneath matter long before science could test the idea. For thousands of years, humanity argued over whether atoms were real at all. Entire civilizations rose and vanished before humans finally gained evidence that matter was truly built from invisible structures smaller than imagination itself. And even then, the deeper truth remained hidden, because discovering atoms was only the beginning. Understanding what they actually are would become far stranger than anyone expected. By the early 20th century, scientists had finally accepted that atoms were real. Invisible, yes. Impossible to touch directly, certainly, but real physical structures hidden beneath every material object in existence. Yet what nobody expected was that the atom itself would turn out to be almost entirely empty. This discovery changed humanity's understanding of reality forever. Because once scientists finally peered inside the atom, they discovered that the solid world was not truly solid at all. Imagine once again that you are shrinking downward through scales too small for ordinary thought. The atom now rises around you like a gigantic hollow cathedral suspended in darkness. And at the center of this enormous invisible chamber sits something astonishingly tiny: the nucleus. A compact cluster containing nearly all the atom's mass. Everything else surrounding it is almost entirely empty space. The scale difference is difficult to emotionally grasp. If an atom were enlarged to the size of a massive sports stadium, the nucleus at its center would be no larger than a marble resting quietly on the field below. The entire rest of the stadium would be empty. Not partially empty, almost completely vacant. No hidden structures filling the interior. No invisible solid material packed inside. Just distance. Vast atomic distance surrounding a tiny concentrated center. This means the chair beneath you is mostly empty space. The walls around you are mostly empty space. Your own body is mostly empty space. Every atom inside you contains a nucleus unimaginably small compared to the total volume the atom occupies. And yet somehow this emptiness creates the appearance of solid matter. Somehow these hollow structures combine into mountains, oceans, steel bridges, forests, planets, and living beings capable of wondering about themselves beneath the stars. The nucleus itself is incredibly tiny, roughly 100,000 times smaller than the atoms surrounding it. But despite its size, the nucleus contains nearly all the atom's mass. Protons and neutrons are compressed together there with extraordinary density. Electrons drift far outward beyond it, forming the atom's larger structure. But electrons contribute almost none of the atom's weight. Nearly all the mass you carry through life exists inside tiny nuclear centers hidden within your atoms. This leads to one of the strangest thought experiments in all of physics. What would happen if all the empty space inside your atoms vanished completely? What if every atomic nucleus in your body were compressed together without the enormous gaps surrounding them? How large would you remain? The answer sounds impossible at first. The matter inside a human body would compress smaller than a grain of dust. Every organ, every memory encoded inside neural structures, every cell in your bloodstream, all reduced into something barely visible. You would still weigh exactly the same, but your physical size would become almost unimaginably tiny because the overwhelming majority of your body's volume is empty atomic space. This is not merely a fantasy of compression. Nature itself creates such conditions in objects called neutron stars. When enormous stars collapse at the ends of their lives, gravity crushes atomic matter so violently that electrons and protons merge together. The empty space inside atoms vanishes. Matter compresses toward nuclear density. Entire stars containing more mass than our sun become spheres only a few kilometers wide. A spoonful of neutron star matter would outweigh mountains on Earth. And suddenly the scale of ordinary emptiness becomes easier to feel. Every object surrounding you tonight is participating in this silent illusion of solidity. The glass beside your bed, the ceiling above you, the air drifting softly through the room. None of them are truly solid in the way human senses suggest. Instead, reality is constructed from enormous fields of emptiness held together by invisible forces operating at scales far beneath ordinary awareness. And perhaps the strangest part of all is this. Atoms do not even behave like miniature physical objects in the familiar sense. The deeper scientists looked inside them, the more reality itself began to dissolve into something dreamlike and uncertain. For many years, people imagined electrons orbiting atomic nuclei the way planets orbit stars. It seemed intuitive. A tiny solar system hidden inside matter. Electrons circling neatly around a central nucleus along predictable paths. Textbooks still show this image because it is easy to understand visually. But the real behavior of electrons is far stranger. In truth, electrons do not travel around nuclei like tiny planets at all. Quantum physics revealed something profoundly unsettling. An electron does not possess a single precise location before it is measured. Instead, it exists as a spread of probabilities, a cloud of possible positions surrounding the nucleus. Scientists call these regions orbitals rather than orbits because they are not paths. They are fuzzy zones where the electron may appear if observed. The electron behaves partly like a particle and partly like a wave. Not metaphorically, literally. Imagine standing in darkness while trying to locate a firefly moving invisibly through a vast field. Instead of knowing exactly where it is, you only possess a map of where it is likely to appear. Brighter regions represent higher probability. Darker regions represent lower probability. That probability map resembles the true structure of an electron orbital. The electron is not secretly hiding at one exact location waiting to be discovered. Quantum mechanics suggests the electron genuinely exists in a spread-out state until interaction forces a measurable outcome. This idea disturbed even the physicists who discovered it. Albert Einstein himself resisted the notion that nature could operate through probabilities at its deepest levels. He believed reality must contain hidden certainty beneath the apparent randomness. Yet every experiment across the past century has supported the strange predictions of quantum theory with extraordinary precision. Again and again, the universe behaves not as human intuition expects, but according to the strange mathematics of uncertainty. Inside atoms, electrons form elegant probability structures surrounding nuclei like invisible shapes suspended in space. Some resemble spheres. Others resemble dumbbells or intricate flower-like patterns extending through multiple dimensions of orientation. These shapes determine chemistry itself. The reason carbon bonds in certain ways. The reason oxygen supports life. The reason water behaves differently from stone. All emerge from the invisible architecture of electron probability clouds. And now the earlier mystery deepens further. If atoms are mostly empty space, and if electrons are not even fixed objects occupying specific positions, then why does anything feel solid at all? Why can you not pass your hand through a wall? Why does the floor support your body? Why do objects resist one another instead of drifting through empty atomic space like ghosts crossing mist? The answer lies not in matter itself, but in forces. Invisible interactions woven through emptiness so completely that they create the entire physical sensation of reality. When you press your hand against a table, the atoms inside your skin never truly touch the atoms inside the wood. Not in the ordinary sense of physical contact. Instead, the negatively charged electrons surrounding your atoms repel the negatively charged electrons surrounding the table's atoms. Electromagnetic forces push outward long before the nuclei themselves could ever approach each other closely. What you experience as touch is actually resistance between electric fields suspended across microscopic emptiness. In a strange sense, no object has ever truly touched another object in the way human intuition imagines. The sensation of contact emerges from force interactions acting at tiny distances between electron clouds. Your body lives inside a universe of invisible repulsion fields constantly preventing matter from collapsing into itself. And another quantum rule deepens the mystery even further. It is called the Pauli exclusion principle, one of the most important laws in the universe. This principle states that certain particles, including electrons, cannot occupy exactly the same quantum state simultaneously. In simple terms, electrons resist being compressed into identical arrangements. They refuse to stack perfectly on top of one another. This quantum resistance creates structure itself, prevents atoms from collapsing inward, stabilizes matter. It allows stars, planets, forests, oceans, and living creatures to maintain physical form. Without this rule, ordinary matter would not exist as we know it. Atoms would collapse catastrophically. Chemistry would vanish. Life would never emerge. The quiet solidity of your bedroom tonight depends entirely on invisible quantum laws operating continuously beneath perception. This means the feeling of sitting in a chair is actually a dance of electromagnetic repulsion and quantum restriction occurring between trillions of atoms every second. Your body is suspended not by solid contact, but by invisible fields balancing against one another across empty atomic distance. The world feels stable because these interactions are extraordinarily reliable. They happen with such consistency that human beings evolved to perceive them as ordinary physical reality. But beneath that familiar experience lies something astonishingly strange. The universe is not constructed from miniature solid blocks packed tightly together. It is built from probabilities, forces, and emptiness arranged into patterns stable enough to create stars and conscious minds. Matter is less like tiny stones and more like structured energy fields woven into temporary forms. Even the air around you reveals this hidden reality. At room temperature, air molecules race invisibly through space at extraordinary speeds. Hundreds of meters every second. They collide endlessly with your skin, your walls, your lungs. Countless microscopic impacts happening continuously around your body right now. Yet, because the particles are so tiny and distributed so evenly, you never perceive individual collisions. Instead, your brain experiences the smooth sensation we call atmosphere. Everything about human perception emerges from averages. The warmth of a blanket, the hardness of stone, the scent of rain, all are collective effects produced by astronomical numbers of atomic interactions blending together into continuous sensation. Reality feels smooth because the underlying chaos is too small and too numerous for your nervous system to isolate individually. And perhaps this is the deepest mystery hidden inside the atom. Human beings evolved to survive at ordinary scales. We see forests rather than molecules, oceans rather than atoms, faces rather than quantum probability clouds. The brain simplifies reality into stable objects because survival depends on usable approximations rather than microscopic truth. Yet science gradually peeled back those approximations layer by layer until the universe beneath ordinary experience finally revealed itself as something far stranger than anyone expected. And once you begin seeing matter this way, the world around you subtly changes forever. The walls no longer appear entirely solid. The air no longer seems empty. Even your own body begins to feel less like a fixed object and more like a temporary arrangement of invisible patterns suspended within enormous fields of atomic space. Now let us descend even deeper, beyond atoms, beyond electron clouds, into the nucleus itself. Because although the nucleus occupies only a tiny fraction of atomic volume, it contains nearly all the atom's mass and almost all the hidden violence inside ordinary matter. Imagine shrinking again until the nucleus rises before you like an impossibly dense sphere floating in darkness. Inside it exist protons and neutrons compressed together with extraordinary force. The environment here is unlike anything in ordinary human life. At these scales, the fundamental forces of nature dominate reality directly. Gravity becomes almost irrelevant. Electromagnetism competes with deeper interactions. And the strongest force in the known universe begins to reveal itself. It is called the strong nuclear force. A force so powerful that it binds positively charged protons together despite their natural electromagnetic repulsion. Under ordinary conditions, particles carrying identical electric charges repel one another fiercely. Two positive charges push apart. Two negative charges push apart. This principle shapes chemistry, electricity, and much of everyday physics. And yet, inside the nucleus, positively charged protons remain packed tightly together in defiance of that repulsion. Something stronger must overpower it. And that something is the strong nuclear force. This force operates only across incredibly tiny distances. smaller than the nucleus itself. But within that narrow range, it becomes overwhelmingly powerful. Strong enough to hold atomic nuclei together against immense internal pressure. Strong enough to store colossal amounts of energy silently inside ordinary matter all around you. Every atomic nucleus in your body contains this hidden tension. Tiny particles locked together by one of nature's most powerful interactions. Quiet, stable, invisible, yet carrying enough stored energy that under the right conditions entire cities can be destroyed from splitting atomic nuclei apart. This realization changed the 20th century forever. Because once humanity understood that enormous energy was hidden inside matter itself, civilization crossed a threshold from which it could never return. Nuclear reactions inside stars had always powered the universe. But now human beings understood that the same processes existed inside ordinary atoms on Earth. Inside the sun, nuclei are forced together under immense pressure and temperature. Hydrogen atoms merge into helium. Tiny amounts of mass convert directly into energy. The sunlight drifting across your skin during the day began as nuclear fusion deep inside the solar core thousands of years ago. Every sunrise is ultimately a nuclear event unfolding 93 million miles away. Yet stars are not merely giant fires. They are cosmic furnaces manufacturing the elements themselves. In the early universe after the Big Bang, only the lightest elements existed in large amounts, mostly hydrogen and helium. But inside stars, heavier nuclei slowly formed through nuclear fusion across millions and billions of years. Carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, iron, calcium, the elements necessary for planets, oceans, forests, and life itself. This means something beautiful and haunting at the same time. The atoms inside your body were not created on Earth. The carbon in your muscles, the oxygen in your blood, the calcium inside your bones, all were forged inside ancient stars long before the Earth existed. When massive stars died, they scattered those elements outward into interstellar darkness through colossal explosions called supernovae. Clouds of enriched matter drifted through space for millions of years until eventually some of it gathered into new stars, new planets, new oceans, and eventually living creatures capable of wondering where they came from. You are literally constructed from recycled stellar nuclei, ancient atomic fragments assembled temporarily into human form. And someday those atoms will continue onward again into other arrangements after your life has passed. The universe continuously rearranges matter without ever truly destroying it. This idea becomes even stranger when we remember how tiny atoms really are. Your body feels stable and personal because your atoms are organized into precise biological patterns. But the atoms themselves are interchangeable with atoms anywhere else in the cosmos. A hydrogen atom drifting silently through interstellar space is identical to a hydrogen atom inside your bloodstream. The universe does not label matter with ownership. It simply rearranges particles into temporary structures. Even now, atoms constantly move through your body and back into the environment. With every breath, you exchange atoms with the atmosphere. Tiny fragments once inside forests, oceans, dinosaurs, ancient civilizations, and distant human beings drift invisibly through your lungs tonight. The boundaries between objects are not as absolute as they appear. Matter flows continuously through living systems in slow, invisible cycles. And deeper still beneath protons and neutrons lies another hidden layer of reality. Because even those particles are not truly fundamental. During the 20th century, physicists discovered that protons and neutrons themselves are built from smaller particles called quarks. Tiny quantum entities bound together by the strong force in ways almost impossible to visualize directly. Quarks never exist freely under ordinary conditions. The strong force behaves strangely. Unlike gravity or electromagnetism, it becomes stronger as quarks separate farther apart. Trying to pull quarks apart is like stretching an infinitely tightening cosmic rubber band. Eventually, the energy becomes so extreme that entirely new particles form instead of isolated quarks emerging independently. Nature refuses to let them separate completely. At these scales, language itself begins to struggle. Human intuition evolved for trees, rivers, weather, animals, and survival across ordinary distances. Not for quantum fields and confined quarks vibrating inside atomic nuclei. The deeper science descends beneath visible reality. The more familiar concepts dissolve into abstractions of energy, probability, and mathematical structure. And perhaps the strangest discovery of all is that empty space itself may not truly be empty. Quantum physics suggests that even the vacuum contains restless activity beneath apparent nothingness. Tiny fluctuations constantly emerge and disappear across microscopic intervals. Particles briefly flicker into existence before vanishing again. Space itself possesses hidden structure beneath silence. This means the emptiness inside atoms is not necessarily absolute nothingness in the philosophical sense. It is a dynamic quantum vacuum filled with invisible fields permeating reality everywhere simultaneously. According to modern physics, particles themselves may simply be excitations in those deeper fields. Tiny ripples moving through invisible structures underlying the universe itself. An electron may not be a miniature solid object at all. It may instead be a localized disturbance within an electron field extending throughout all space. In the same way a wave rises temporarily from the surface of an ocean, particles may emerge temporarily from deeper quantum fields permeating the cosmos. And suddenly the universe feels less like a machine built from tiny physical pieces and more like a vast ocean of interacting energy patterns. Matter becomes music played through invisible fields rather than stones stacked together in space. Solid objects become standing patterns inside deeper systems humanity barely understands even now. The universe grows more mysterious the closer we look. And yet, despite all this strangeness, these invisible laws operate with astonishing reliability. Quantum mechanics governs every atom around you continuously with almost unimaginable precision. The stars burn according to these laws. DNA copies itself according to these laws. Chemical bonds form and break according to these laws. Your thoughts themselves emerge from electrical interactions guided by quantum behavior inside countless atoms across your nervous system. This is one of the deepest paradoxes of existence. Reality at its foundation is uncertain, probabilistic, and deeply strange. Yet from that uncertainty emerges the stable world of mountains, oceans, forests, civilizations, memory, and conscious experience. The calm room around you tonight exists because unimaginable numbers of microscopic quantum events average together into smooth, large-scale stability. Think again about the chair beneath you. Beneath its apparent solidity lies restless atomic motion. electrons shifting through probability clouds, atomic nuclei vibrating with thermal energy, quantum forces balancing delicately against one another. Nothing is truly still. Even in solid objects, atoms tremble continuously. Absolute stillness would require reaching absolute zero temperature, a condition impossible to achieve perfectly in nature. The universe is always moving beneath perception, and all of this hidden activity exists inside structures so small that millions fit across the width of a pinhead. Entire worlds of invisible motion concealed beneath ordinary surfaces. Vast quantum architectures hidden inside every grain of dust drifting through moonlight. There is something strangely humbling about this realization. Human beings experience themselves as large central creatures moving confidently through a solid world. Yet beneath that experience lies an invisible reality operating according to laws profoundly indifferent to intuition or human expectation. The cosmos did not evolve to feel understandable. It evolved according to mathematical structures deeper than instinct itself. And still, somehow, conscious minds emerged from this process. Collections of atoms became aware enough to question the atoms composing them. The universe arranged ancient stellar material into nervous systems capable of reflecting upon the universe itself. A temporary configuration of quantum fields learned to ask what quantum fields are. Perhaps that is the greatest mystery hidden inside the atom. Not merely its size, not merely its emptiness, but the fact that these tiny invisible structures eventually assembled themselves into living creatures capable of curiosity, memory, imagination, and wonder. Tonight, your thoughts themselves are patterns moving through atomic matter forged inside dead stars. Electrical signals travel through neurons built from ancient cosmic elements. Every emotion you have ever felt emerged from interactions between particles so small that trillions could rest invisibly upon a single grain of sand. And yet, somehow those particles became you. As we continue descending deeper into this hidden world, the boundaries between physics and philosophy begin to blur softly at the edges. Because eventually every journey into matter becomes a journey into existence itself. What does it truly mean for something to be real? What does it mean for objects to exist if their solidity emerges from invisible forces and probability fields? What exactly are we experiencing when we say the world feels physical? Modern physics cannot fully answer these questions. It describes behavior with astonishing accuracy, but the deeper meaning beneath the mathematics remains mysterious. Scientists can predict how electrons behave with extraordinary precision. Yet what an electron truly is beneath the equations remains uncertain. Is it a particle, a wave, a field excitation, probability distribution? Perhaps all at once, perhaps none completely. The closer humanity moves toward the foundations of reality, the more language itself begins to fail. Words like object, particle, location, and motion were invented for everyday human experience. They strain under the weight of quantum truth. And somewhere beneath all these layers of uncertainty and emptiness, the universe continues quietly assembling galaxies, oceans, storms, forests, dreams, and living minds from invisible atomic structures suspended inside enormous silence. The atom, once imagined as the smallest solid unit of matter, has instead revealed itself as a doorway into one of the strangest realities ever discovered. And perhaps nowhere does this hidden strangeness become more visible than in the phenomenon known as quantum entanglement. A discovery so unsettling that Einstein himself called it spooky action at a distance. Because at the deepest scales of reality, particles can become connected in ways that seem to ignore ordinary separation entirely. Imagine two particles interacting briefly inside some distant star billions of years ago. According to quantum mechanics, their properties can become linked together through entanglement. Afterward, even if those particles travel across enormous cosmic distances, measuring one instantly determines aspects of the other. Not because information travels conventionally between them through space, but because the system itself behaves as one connected quantum state. This does not allow faster-than-light communication in the simple science fiction sense. Reality preserves deeper rules that prevent paradoxes. Yet experiments repeatedly confirm that entangled particles behave in ways profoundly unlike ordinary objects. Nature at the quantum level appears interconnected beyond classical human intuition. And this strange interconnectedness may quietly surround you even now. Every atom inside your body has interacted with countless other particles across cosmic history. Quantum fields overlap continuously throughout space. The boundaries human beings perceive between separate objects may not be as absolute as they appear from the perspective of ordinary experience. At large scales, the world feels divided into individual things. A chair, a wall, person, a tree, planet. But beneath those categories lies a deeper physical reality of interacting fields and exchanged particles flowing continuously across time and space. Matter mixes, energy transfers, atoms cycle endlessly through stars, oceans, soil, air, and living creatures. The universe is less like isolated objects floating separately and more like a vast, evolving process rearranging itself continuously. Even your body is not physically the same body you possessed years ago. Most atoms inside you gradually exchange with the environment over time. Cells die and regenerate. Molecules drift outward through breath and skin, while new matter enters through food, air, and water. Your identity persists not because the atoms remain permanently fixed, but because the organizational pattern continues. In this sense, life resembles a whirlpool forming temporarily within a flowing river. The water continuously changes, yet the larger structure remains recognizable for a time. Human beings are stable patterns moving through streams of atomic matter. And all those atoms are ancient beyond comprehension. Some of the hydrogen inside your body formed within minutes after the Big Bang itself. Nearly 14 billion years ago, before stars existed, before galaxies fully formed, before planets, oceans, or biology emerged anywhere in the observable universe. Tiny primordial nuclei drifted through cosmic darkness for eons before eventually becoming part of you tonight. There is something deeply peaceful about this continuity. The universe is not built from separate, disconnected substances. Everything emerges from the same shared cosmic history. The calcium in your bones and the iron inside distant asteroids were forged through related stellar processes. The oxygen entering your lungs tonight may once have drifted through forests thousands of years ago. Matter circulates endlessly through changing forms while the deeper atomic foundations persist. And yet, despite this continuity, human experience remains fragile and temporary. The atomic structures composing your thoughts exist in delicate balance. Tiny disruptions in molecular arrangements inside the brain can alter memory, emotion, personality, or consciousness itself. Life depends upon astonishingly precise atomic organization maintained continuously against entropy and decay. Entropy is another quiet force shaping the universe beneath perception. Left alone, ordered systems tend gradually toward disorder over time. Structures decay. Energy spreads outward. Complexity becomes harder to maintain. Stars exhaust their nuclear fuel. Galaxies slowly drift farther apart. Even atoms themselves are not necessarily eternal. Some radioactive nuclei eventually decay into different forms through quantum processes unfolding unpredictably across immense spans of time. Everything physical exists within time's slow current. Yet, remarkably, life temporarily pushes back against this drift toward disorder. Living systems capture energy from their surroundings and use it to preserve intricate internal organization. Plants absorb sunlight. Animals consume chemical energy. Cells repair themselves continuously. Consciousness itself may be understood partly as an organized flow of information sustained through extraordinarily complex atomic interactions inside biological matter. And all of it emerges from atoms, tiny, mostly empty structures suspended inside quantum fields. Sometimes it is tempting to imagine scientific discovery removing mystery from the universe. But the deeper humanity explored atomic reality, the more mystery expanded instead. The atom was once expected to be a simple, indivisible building block. Instead, it became a doorway into uncertainty, probability, invisible forces, quantum interconnectedness, and questions so deep that philosophy and physics begin overlapping in silence. Even now, scientists still do not possess a complete unified explanation of reality. Quantum mechanics describes the microscopic world with astonishing accuracy. General relativity describes gravity and cosmic structure across enormous scales. Yet combining these frameworks fully remains one of the greatest unsolved problems in modern science. Somewhere beneath atoms and galaxies may exist even deeper layers of structure humanity has not yet uncovered. Perhaps space-time itself emerges from something more fundamental. Perhaps reality contains dimensions hidden beyond perception. Perhaps consciousness relates to physics in ways still poorly understood. The atom opened the first door into the hidden architecture of existence, but it did not reveal the final room. And perhaps that is why the atom continues to fascinate humanity so deeply, not simply because it is small, but because it shattered the comfortable illusion that reality must behave according to ordinary human intuition. The deeper we descended into matter, the stranger existence became. Solidity dissolved into forces. Particles dissolved into probabilities. Empty space revealed hidden activity, and certainty itself gave way to quantum uncertainty woven into the structure of nature. Yet despite all this complexity, the universe remains astonishingly elegant. The same quantum laws governing electrons inside atoms also govern the chemistry of stars and the biology of living cells. Tiny mathematical relationships repeated endlessly across cosmic scales create everything from crystals forming beneath Earth's crust to galaxies drifting through intergalactic darkness. There is a quiet symmetry hidden beneath reality. Patterns repeating across scales. Electrons bound to nuclei by invisible attraction. Planets bound to stars through gravity. Stars gathered into galaxies. galaxies woven into enormous cosmic filaments stretching across the observable universe like luminous neural pathways through darkness. Different forces, different scales, yet similar architectures emerging again and again. And still, the atom remains among the strangest thresholds humanity has ever crossed intellectually. Because before modern physics, people naturally imagined matter becoming more solid as one looked deeper inside it. Instead, the opposite occurred. Matter became emptier, less definite, less physical in the ordinary sense. The foundations of the visible world turned out to resemble invisible relationships more than miniature objects. If you could somehow shrink tonight into the atomic scale, the world around you would appear almost entirely vacant. Atomic nuclei would drift like distant specks separated by enormous expanses of emptiness. Electron clouds would shimmer as diffuse probability structures rather than solid surfaces. Nothing would resemble the stable, continuous reality human senses evolved to perceive. Even color itself would disappear at that scale. Color is not a property stored inside atoms. It emerges when specific wavelengths of light interact with electron structures and nervous systems interpret the results. The redness of a rose exists partly in the flower, partly in light, and partly inside the brain observing it. Much of experienced reality emerges from interaction rather than existing as isolated absolute properties. Sound behaves similarly. Atoms themselves are silent. Sound arises when vibrating matter transfers pressure waves through air, and nervous systems translate those vibrations into conscious perception. Warmth, texture, taste, smell, all emerge from interactions between atomic processes and biological interpretation. In many ways, human beings do not experience reality directly. We experience a simplified neurological model constructed from sensory information useful for survival. The deeper physical truth beneath that model is vastly stranger than everyday awareness suggests. And still, despite these layers of abstraction, the universe somehow remains beautiful. There is beauty in knowing that every star in the night sky shines because atomic nuclei fuse together deep within stellar cores. Beauty in knowing that your body carries atoms forged inside ancient supernovae long before Earth existed. Beauty in realizing that consciousness itself emerged from matter learning to organize and reflect upon its own existence. Tonight, somewhere above your sleeping world, countless stars continue manufacturing new elements inside invisible furnaces. Hydrogen merges into helium, helium into carbon, carbon into heavier nuclei across millions of years. Future planets and future living beings are already being prepared silently within those distant fires. And here on Earth, inside your own body, ancient atoms continue cycling through extraordinary biological patterns. Electrons leap between molecular bonds. Cells exchange signals. Neurons generate thought from electrochemical flows moving invisibly through microscopic architecture. All while you remain mostly unaware of the unimaginable activity occurring beneath perception every second of your life. Perhaps that is the final emotional truth hidden inside the atom. Reality is far more alive with motion, transformation, and hidden structure than human senses reveal. The universe is not static beneath the surface. It vibrates continuously with invisible processes unfolding across scales too small and too vast for instinct alone to grasp. And yet somehow, out of all this motion and emptiness, moments of quiet still exist. A person listening softly in darkness. Calm breath before sleep. Moonlight across a window. The distant sound of rain. Temporary arrangements of atoms becoming experiences filled with meaning and memory. The atoms themselves do not know they are part of a human being. They do not understand beauty or loneliness or wonder. Yet arranged together in extraordinary complexity, they create minds capable of contemplating the universe that formed them. In a sense, the cosmos became conscious enough to look back at itself through living eyes. And all of that began with invisible structures smaller than imagination itself. The atom is not merely a scientific object. It is a reminder that reality is deeper, stranger, and more interconnected than ordinary life suggests. Beneath every surface lies enormous emptiness. Beneath that emptiness lie invisible forces. Beneath those forces lie quantum fields and uncertainty. And beneath all of it remains mystery still waiting in silence for future minds to uncover. Now, after descending through atoms, nuclei, quantum fields, and invisible forces, we arrive at one final unsettling realization. Human beings do not stand outside this strange universe observing it from a distance. We are part of it completely. Every thought, every memory, every fear, every dream unfolding quietly inside your mind tonight emerges from the same atomic processes shaping stars and galaxies across the cosmos. The boundary between the observer and the observed becomes strangely thin at the deepest levels of reality. For centuries, people imagined consciousness as something separate from matter, something detached from physical law. Yet modern neuroscience reveals that thoughts arise through electrochemical activity moving through vast networks of neurons. Tiny charged particles drift across microscopic gaps between cells. Molecules bind to receptors. Electrical patterns ripple across biological structures built from atoms forged in ancient stars. And somehow, from those interactions, subjective experience appears. No one fully understands how consciousness emerges from matter. This remains one of the deepest mysteries in science and philosophy alike. Physicists can describe electrons with astonishing mathematical precision. Biologists can map neural pathways in extraordinary detail. Yet the existence of inner experience itself still resists complete explanation. Why should arrangements of atoms produce awareness at all? Why should physical processes inside the brain generate feelings, memories, imagination, or the quiet sense of being someone listening to a voice in darkness? This mystery grows even stranger when viewed through the atomic perspective we have explored tonight. Because the brain itself is built from structures that are mostly empty space. Your thoughts arise from interactions between atomic systems governed by quantum rules and electromagnetic forces. Consciousness emerges not from solid substance, but from organized patterns moving through invisible fields and microscopic emptiness. Perhaps this is why reality often feels simultaneously solid and dreamlike. At large scales, the world appears stable and physical. Yet beneath that stability lies constant motion and uncertainty. The atoms composing your body tonight are vibrating continuously. Electrons shift through probability clouds. Molecular bonds form and break silently every moment. Your body is less like a statue and more like a flowing process temporarily maintaining recognizable shape. Even memory reflects this strange balance between permanence and change. Experiences alter neural structures physically. Learning changes the arrangement of synaptic connections inside the brain. Thoughts leave microscopic traces within living tissue. In a very real sense, every important moment of your life has slightly reshaped the atomic architecture of your nervous system. And yet those atoms themselves are ancient. Some may have traveled through countless previous forms before becoming part of you. Perhaps an oxygen atom inside your bloodstream once drifted through prehistoric oceans beneath unfamiliar skies. Perhaps carbon inside your brain once rested within ancient forests millions of years ago. Matter flows endlessly through changing forms while consciousness experiences brief moments of individuality within the stream. There is something comforting about this continuity. Human lives are temporary, but the atoms composing us belong to a much older cosmic story stretching back nearly 14 billion years. The universe has been recycling matter since the earliest stars ignited in darkness. You are not separate from that process. You are one temporary expression of it. And the scale of that process remains almost impossible to fully absorb emotionally. Consider again how tiny atoms truly are. Millions resting across the width of a pinhead. Trillions drifting invisibly through a breath of air. Vast numbers beyond comprehension quietly constructing everything you have ever known. Yet despite their tiny size, atomic interactions govern nearly every phenomenon in ordinary life. Fire is chemistry unfolding between atoms. Water flowing through rivers depends upon molecular structures and electromagnetic attraction. The strength of steel, the softness of skin, the transparency of glass, the fragrance of flowers, all emerge from atomic arrangements invisible to direct human perception. Reality at human scales is essentially a large-scale expression of microscopic behavior. Mountains exist because atoms bond together in stable mineral structures. Oceans behave according to interactions between water molecules. Even weather emerges partly from atomic collisions occurring invisibly inside Earth's atmosphere. And through it all, human beings move unaware across a world built from invisible quantum architecture. We evolved to perceive useful approximations rather than microscopic truth. Survival required recognizing predators, shelter, movement, faces, and environmental patterns, not understanding electron orbitals or quantum fields. The strange atomic reality beneath perception remained hidden for nearly all of human history. Only recently did humanity begin uncovering how deeply mysterious matter truly is. And perhaps the most astonishing part of this discovery is that the universe allowed conscious beings to uncover it at all. Tiny collections of atoms arranged into biological organisms eventually became intelligent enough to investigate the invisible foundations of matter itself. The cosmos evolved structures capable of studying the cosmos. Ancient stellar material learned to ask questions about stars. When physicists first uncovered the strange behavior of atoms, many resisted the conclusions because they violated common sense so completely. Reality at the quantum level did not behave like ordinary objects. Particles could exist in superpositions. Electrons behaved as both waves and particles. Observation itself influenced measurable outcomes. The deeper scientists investigated, the more nature seemed to abandon the familiar logic of daily life. Yet despite how strange these discoveries felt philosophically, the mathematics predicted reality with extraordinary accuracy. Quantum mechanics became one of the most successful scientific theories ever created. Every modern computer, every smartphone, every laser, every MRI machine, every semiconductor depends directly upon understanding atomic and quantum behavior. Human civilization quietly rests upon principles that still feel almost surreal emotionally. Inside the devices surrounding you tonight, electrons tunnel through microscopic barriers according to quantum rules. Atomic interactions inside semiconductors guide streams of information invisibly through circuits smaller than dust particles. The modern technological world emerged because humanity learned how to manipulate the hidden behavior of atoms. And yet, even with all this knowledge, the atom still resists complete intuitive understanding. Scientists can calculate probabilities with astonishing precision, but visualizing quantum reality remains difficult because human brains evolved for entirely different environments. We naturally imagine objects possessing definite locations and clear boundaries because those assumptions work well for survival at ordinary scales. But atoms do not fully obey those assumptions. In quantum physics, certainty dissolves into likelihood. Reality becomes less like clockwork machinery and more like unfolding possibility constrained by mathematical structure. Particles occupy probability distributions until interactions force measurable outcomes. The universe beneath perception behaves less like a rigid machine and more like a restless field of potential continuously resolving into temporary forms. Some interpretations of quantum mechanics suggest all possible outcomes exist simultaneously until observation selects one branch of reality. Others propose hidden structures beneath current theories still waiting to be discovered. Still others accept probability itself as fundamental. Modern physics contains extraordinary predictive power, yet profound philosophical disagreement remains about what the mathematics truly means beneath the surface. And perhaps that uncertainty is appropriate. After all, the atom already taught humanity one profound lesson. Reality does not need to conform to human expectation in order to exist. The universe is under no obligation to feel intuitive. There is something strangely peaceful in accepting that. Human beings often crave certainty and permanence. Yet the atomic world reveals existence as fluid, interconnected, and continuously changing. Matter flows. Energy transforms. Structures emerge temporarily and dissolve again across time. Stability itself becomes a dynamic balancing process rather than fixed permanence. Even the stars are temporary. The sun shining above Earth tonight is quietly changing hydrogen into helium deep within its core every second. Slowly, across billions of years, its internal structure evolves. One day far in the future, the sun will expand outward into a red giant star. Oceans will vanish. Earth itself may become unrecognizable. Eventually, the outer layers of the sun will drift into space, scattering atoms outward once more into the galaxy. And those atoms will continue onward. Some may join future stars. Some may become part of distant planets not yet born. Some may eventually participate in entirely new forms of life somewhere beneath unfamiliar skies. Matter does not disappear. It rearranges continuously through cosmic time. Your own atoms participate in that larger story right now. Every breath exchanges particles with the atmosphere. Every meal incorporates ancient matter into living structure. Every moment your body rebuilds itself quietly at microscopic scales. You are not a static object. You are an ongoing process woven temporarily from cosmic material passing through time. And perhaps this is why contemplating atoms often creates a strange emotional effect. On one hand, human beings feel incredibly small against such scales. Tiny creatures living briefly upon one planet among billions, built from microscopic structures drifting inside enormous cosmic emptiness. Yet, on the other hand, the atom reveals profound connection. The same physical laws shaping distant galaxies also shape your heartbeat tonight. The same elements forged in stellar explosions now carry oxygen through your bloodstream. You are not separate from the universe observing you. You are one expression of it. Even now, as you listen quietly in darkness, trillions upon trillions of atomic interactions continue unfolding inside your body without conscious awareness. Molecules move through cells. Proteins fold into intricate shapes. Electrons shift between energy states. Neurons exchange signals through microscopic chemical events. Entire hidden worlds of activity sustain your existence continuously beneath perception. And all of it emerges from structures smaller than imagination first assumed possible. And still, despite all the extraordinary discoveries of modern physics, one mystery remains quietly untouched beneath every explanation. Why does anything exist at all? Why should there be quantum fields, atoms, stars, galaxies, or consciousness instead of absolute nothingness? Science can describe processes with remarkable precision, but the existence of reality itself still stands like a silent horizon beyond complete understanding. The atom brought humanity closer to that horizon than ever before. At first, people imagined atoms would be simple final building blocks. Tiny solid spheres sitting beneath matter like invisible grains of sand. But every layer humanity uncovered revealed deeper complexity instead. The atom contained nuclei and electrons. Protons and neutrons contained quarks. Empty space revealed quantum fields. Certainty dissolved into probability. Matter became patterns of energy and interaction rather than tiny permanent objects. The closer we moved toward the foundations of existence, the less familiar reality became. And yet somehow, despite all this hidden strangeness, everyday life continues peacefully around us. Rain falls softly onto rooftops. Rivers move toward oceans. Trees grow slowly beneath sunlight. People laugh, dream, worry, fall asleep, and wake again beneath the stars without ever noticing the extraordinary microscopic architecture supporting every ordinary moment. Perhaps that is part of the beauty of existence. The deepest mysteries do not remove meaning from life. If anything, they deepen it. A simple breath becomes more astonishing once you realize trillions of invisible molecules are drifting through your lungs every second. A human heartbeat becomes more extraordinary once you understand the atomic precision required for living cells to sustain themselves. Even a quiet touch between two people becomes stranger and more beautiful when you remember that no atoms truly touch at all. Invisible electromagnetic forces create the sensation entirely across microscopic emptiness. Reality is far more delicate and miraculous than ordinary intuition suggests. Tonight, somewhere far beyond Earth, ancient stars continue exploding in darkness. Their atomic debris expands outward across galaxies, carrying the ingredients for future worlds not yet formed. Somewhere else, new stars ignite from collapsing clouds of hydrogen. Around some of them, planets slowly gather from drifting dust and gas. Perhaps on distant worlds beneath unfamiliar skies, other conscious beings may someday wonder about the same mysteries we explored tonight. And if they descend deeply enough into matter, they too may discover the same astonishing truth. The universe is built mostly from emptiness. Tiny invisible structures held together by strange forces and quantum laws create everything solid, living, and beautiful. There is something profoundly humbling about realizing how little of reality human senses naturally reveal. Your eyes cannot see atoms. Your skin cannot feel quantum fields. Your ears cannot hear the restless vibration of molecules in the air. The world you experience consciously is only a thin, simplified layer floating above a much deeper ocean of hidden structure. And perhaps there are still deeper layers beyond what science currently understands. Future discoveries may reveal entirely new dimensions of reality beneath atoms and quantum fields, just as atoms once revealed hidden worlds beneath visible matter. Human knowledge continues expanding slowly through curiosity, mathematics, and observation. Yet the unknown always stretches farther ahead. That endless mystery may be one of the universe's most beautiful qualities, because wonder survives only where complete certainty ends. The atom did not make the universe smaller or simpler once humanity discovered it. Instead, it opened enormous new depths beneath ordinary experience. The familiar world transformed into something vast, layered, and profoundly strange. A single grain of dust became a universe of invisible motion. A drop of water became an ocean of atomic structures beyond counting. The human body became a temporary arrangement of ancient stellar matter suspended within fields of probability and force. And through all of this, consciousness drifts quietly onward for a little while. A brief flicker of awareness carried by atoms that once belonged to stars and will someday belong to something else again. Perhaps that thought feels unsettling at first, but perhaps it can also feel peaceful. You do not need to hold the universe together. The atoms inside your body already know how to exist. Your heart continues beating without conscious instruction. Your lungs continue exchanging molecules with the atmosphere. Ancient physical laws older than Earth itself quietly sustain your existence every moment. The cosmos has been practicing these patterns for billions of years. Tonight, as you rest beneath the dark sky, countless atomic interactions continue unfolding silently around you. The walls around your room vibrate softly with thermal motion. Air molecules drift invisibly through darkness. Distant stars burn through nuclear fusion across unimaginable distances. And inside your own body, ancient atoms forged in stellar furnaces continue participating in the temporary miracle called being alive, all emerging from structures so small that millions could fit across the width of a single human hair. The true scale of an atom is not merely a measurement. It is a doorway into understanding how strange and beautiful existence really is beneath the surface. And now, as our journey slowly comes to an end, let the scale of it all settle quietly in your mind for a moment. Somewhere inside your body tonight are atoms older than Earth itself. Tiny ancient particles drifting through cosmic history long before oceans formed or forests grew or human beings first looked upward at the stars in wonder. Those same atoms now participate in your breathing, your heartbeat, your thoughts, and your awareness as you rest here listening in the darkness. The universe did not build itself from giant obvious structures first. It began with tiny fluctuations, invisible particles, expanding energy fields, and delicate interactions unfolding across unimaginable spans of time. Galaxies emerged slowly, stars ignited gradually, heavy elements formed patiently inside stellar furnaces. Planets cooled. Chemistry became biology. Biology became consciousness. And eventually consciousness became capable of asking questions about atoms. Perhaps that is one of the most beautiful loops in existence. The universe created structures capable of studying the universe itself. Ancient matter learned to reflect upon its own origins. And yet, the deeper humanity looked, the more reality transformed from certainty into mystery. Atoms became mostly empty space. Particles became probability waves. Space itself revealed hidden quantum activity. Even time and gravity may eventually emerge from deeper structures not yet fully understood. Every discovery opened another doorway rather than providing a final ending. There is something strangely calming about that endlessness. Human beings often search for complete certainty as though mystery were uncomfortable or incomplete. But perhaps mystery is not a flaw in reality. Perhaps it is part of what gives existence depth and beauty. A universe fully explained in simple terms might feel smaller somehow, less alive with possibility. Instead, the cosmos remains layered with hidden structure beneath every scale. Beneath mountains lie minerals. Beneath minerals lie atoms. Beneath atoms lie quantum fields. And beyond even those foundations may exist deeper truths still waiting silently in darkness. Tonight, however, you do not need to solve those mysteries. You only need to rest inside them for a little while. Feel the quiet weight of your body supported by invisible electromagnetic forces between atoms. Feel the slow rhythm of breathing powered by oxygen atoms forged inside ancient stars. Feel the calm stability of a world built from structures so tiny and strange that the human mind still struggles to fully picture them even after centuries of scientific discovery. Outside your room, the Earth continues turning silently through space. Above the atmosphere, sunlight still travels outward across billions of kilometers. Far beyond that, stars continue burning through nuclear fusion exactly as they have for billions of years. Galaxies drift slowly through expanding cosmic darkness. Black holes bend space-time around invisible horizons. And everywhere throughout the universe, atoms continue forming, interacting, vibrating, combining, separating, and rearranging themselves into endless temporary patterns. Some patterns become planets. Some become storms. Some become oceans. Some become living creatures capable of memory and love and fear and imagination. And some, for a brief moment, become you. One day, the atoms inside your body will continue onward into new forms. They may drift through forests not yet grown, oceans not yet formed, perhaps even distant worlds beyond Earth itself. Matter never truly disappears. It changes shape within the endless unfolding story of the cosmos. There is comfort in that continuity. You are not separate from the universe. You are part of its ongoing transformation, a temporary arrangement of ancient stellar material becoming conscious for a little while beneath the night sky. And maybe that is enough. Maybe it is enough simply to exist briefly within this immense mysterious reality. To breathe, to wonder, to feel the quiet beauty of being alive inside a universe built from invisible structures and hidden forces beyond ordinary perception. The true scale of a single atom ultimately reveals something larger than size alone. It reveals how astonishing existence becomes once we look beneath appearances. The solid world dissolves into emptiness. Emptiness reveals energy. Energy forms patterns. Patterns become matter. Matter becomes life. And life becomes awareness capable of contemplating the strange cosmic chain that created it. So tonight, as you slowly drift towards sleep, remember this. Beneath every surface around you lies a hidden universe of motion and silence. Beneath your own thoughts lie ancient atoms born in stellar fire. And beneath the ordinary feeling of reality itself lies one of the strangest truths humanity has ever uncovered. Everything you have ever touched, loved, feared, or remembered was built from structures so small, so empty, and so mysterious that even now, after all our discoveries, the universe still feels almost magical when viewed closely enough. And somewhere deep inside every atom, the mystery continues quietly onward in the dark.